Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another wonderful vid. Obviously, you already know what this one's going to be about because you read the title. Basically, I'm going to be talking a bit about the vinyl revival, the cassette revival, and nostalgia in general. We're going to start with my thoughts on, assuming this thing, there you go, on the vinyl revival, right? What are my thoughts on the vinyl revival, as it were? I think it's interesting, I guess, sort of, but not exactly shocking. And the reason I say it's not shocking is nostalgia plays a huge part in almost everyone's lives when they reach their 30s and 40s, or it starts to, right? When you're younger than that, it's kind of like, basically you're too young to really experience the yearnings for yesteryear. And yes, I'm going to say that the vinyl resurgence is largely fueled by nostalgia, right? And it's just, I think that's a huge part of it because when I hear people talking about collecting vinyl, a lot of people say, I had this as a kid, or I had that as a kid, and I'd like to get this, or I'd like to get that again. Or they say, I never had the chance to own this when I was younger, blah, 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 freaking blah, right? So it seems to be largely a backwards looking trend, for lack of a better term. And I think the reason vinyl is right now the most popular retro format is because, everyone who is collecting vinyl probably grew up with these, right? More than likely. Or at least collected a huge chunk of them. As for myself, in relation to the vinyl revival, I'm not particularly nostalgic for vinyl because I never listened to it a lot growing up. I listened to it a little bit. My parents had records. I didn't. And my musical taste and my parents' musical taste did not hugely intersect. So I didn't listen to like a lot of their records growing up. I listened to maybe one or two here or there, but it wasn't a whole lot. And any records I had, I was really young. I was like 5 years old. But when I started collecting music en masse, it was in this format, cassette, right? And I'm not particularly nostalgic for cassette either, even though cassette's picking up steam. I see it as a it's a fun. Really, I would say both of these formats here are just really fun sidetracks. Sidetracks. Uh, maybe alternative experiences as far as audio goes, right? That's why I deal with them at all. It's just a fun to have a different experience because, on a fundamental level, technically, those are inferior to this or digital, right? Most of the time. But I've talked about that at length, and I'm not going to do that again. But it's just a sideshow, and I think at some point the vinyl revival will lose some steam. And now I realize that sales are still increasing. I think this past year, vinyl sales increased by about 12%. And I think the vinyl revival has been going on for maybe around 10 years or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm not entirely sure how long it's been going on, but I know it's been quite a while. I know it's been more than like just a year or two. So I know it's been fairly long-lived upswing in vinyl, but I think eventually the market is going to stop growing and probably start contracting again. And part of the reason for that is the expense of vinyl reissues. Like a lot of vinyl is like 30, 40 bucks. I got this for 15 from Amazon. Hooray, right? So, I'm a cheapskate and I'm not willing to spend $40 to have a record. Now, I know a lot of people are, but I'm not in that camp. I'm not really willing to spend more than $20 to have a record. That's for sure. Um, so basically, my overall opinion on it's largely fueled by nostalgia, and for really young people, I think there's a bit of hipsterism regarding it. And I don't think either thing is, there's nothing wrong with either thing. It's totally fine to have a hobby that you enjoy collecting old formats. There's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, these are obsolete at this point, pretty much. I mean, if let's be honest, if we're keeping up with the modern world, physical formats aren't really, none of them are current, I mean, per se. So, whatever, that's my overall thoughts on that whole thing. Let me know what you think in relation to these resurgences, how much life you think they have left in them, how far you think they'll go, yada, yada, yada. Now I'm just going to talk a bit about nostalgia in general, right? I think nostalgia overall is okay as long as it's in healthy doses, right? You don't really want to live in the past entirely because then that you retard your future growth, right? And if there's too much nostalgia, then culture doesn't progress. Things just don't progress in the world. A great example of too much nostalgia is we seem to be stuck, especially with Hollywood movies, right? There are fewer and fewer original movies being made every year. And what I mean by original movies are movies that are not reboots or based on an existing franchise, right? Most movies are now reboots or based on existing franchises that were established in the 80s and 90s, which, okay, that's fine and good, but it would be great if there was some newer stuff out there that was floating around that you could really grab onto. I would like to see things progress in a different direction. It would be great if there was like a lot more original ideas for movies rather than just looking backwards. So anyway, that's kind of it. I'm kind of all over the place on this. So anyway, if you like this, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.